Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin&Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery patterns and kits. And I'm here every weeknight at 9:30 p.m. Central. So thanks for joining me tonight, and thank you replay viewers for watching as well. This will be replaying here on Facebook and then also at YouTube at Penguin&Fish Movies. So you can do a search for that there and check out this video when you're done. Tonight we are starting the Craft a Happy Life hand embroidery pattern stitch along. So this is a great little project if you need a palette cleanser between projects. That's kind of how I treat these little short hand embroidery patterns. This will take a couple evenings for us to do, and that's it. Nice, simple, easy. Craft a happy life, a fun little phrase to have hanging in your craft area. So that's the plan tonight. Oh, you ready to learn, Gretchen? Awesome. Yeah, this is totally great for a beginner. If you want to join in with us, I have a PDF version of the pattern. There's a link in the Facebook post here. If you get that one, you'll get it right away. It'll get emailed to you. And otherwise, I also have the all-inclusive kit that has the hoop and thread and fabric and needle instructions, everything ready to go. So let's start tonight. We are going to begin with different ways you can transfer your design. If you have the kit, that's what I will be stitching. I will show you how to use the iron-on transfer. However, if you did get the PDF, I will show you a few ways you can transfer a downloadable pattern that you get off the internet somewhere from a store. So that is the plan tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I am going to flip you guys around and we'll get going. Yay, you got your kit ready to go. Awesome. Okay, thanks again so much for joining me, guys. I appreciate it so much. So, all right, here, now it's not in reverse anymore. This is what we're making. I'm gonna open it up. So this is, if you get a kit, this is exactly how they should come to you. So you didn't really have to prep anything tonight. The only thing you need, if you got a kit, the only thing you're gonna need tonight is scissors. That's when we get to the embroidery part, but then you'll also need, for the iron-on transfer, you'll need, I have an iron, my ironing board, and then make sure to get a paper towel for when we transfer the design. So if you plan on transferring the design tonight and don't have a paper towel or some sort of paper or an old towel or something, make sure to go grab one before you do the iron-on. Otherwise, you'll have a nice Craft a Happy Life design on your ironing board, which, you know, if you want that, then that's fine. So, okay, we got our little hoop here, got some thread and a cute little ribbon. This is to decorate it later, so I'm gonna put that to the side. And we have our instructions, what stitches to use where. We will use that later. So here we go. This is gonna be our guide for colors and for what stitches to use and how to do the stitches. There's also simple embroidery instructions on there too, but we'll be going through all of this during the next few days here. So all right, then you get a needle and a little piece of fabric here. And we have the iron-on pattern, and then that's in reverse, and it's in reverse because when we flip it and iron it on, you know, it's flipped. So when we transfer it down to here, it'll be correct. It'll be like the right orientation. So that's why it's in reverse on the iron-on. And then there's also a traceable pattern too. If once you use the iron-on a few times, if you still want the pattern, you have that. So all right, first up, let's go over how to transfer your design if you have the kit. If you got the PDF pattern, this is what comes in the PDF. So I printed it out in color. You can print it out however you want. There's instructions there. Here are the colors. If you wanted these specific colors, I'm using DMC The blue is DMC 799 and the yellow gold is DMC 3854. However, I would use whatever your favorite 2 colors are in the world. And I might be doing a few more of these during the week here, and I'll use some different colors here. So if you got the PDF, I just printed it out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Make sure when you print that you do actual size. Don't shrink it down, don't fit to size, because then your pattern will end up being a different size. So same thing, we got our instructions and the how-to. And then we have the normal facing pattern, and then we also have a reverse if you use, there's markers that you can do iron-on transfer, so you can trace it onto there and use an iron transfer that way. Otherwise, what I typically use for a PDF is the correct facing one, and I'll show you some ways to do that in a bit. But first up, let's transfer our iron-on pattern to our fabric that came with it. So this is a nice white muslin. I think it's pretty. It's got a little bit bigger weave, so it should be easy to pull the needle through. So all right, let's go up to the ironing board. So here you are going to want to use your paper towels, but first I'm going to just give this a little press. We're going to be holding it and moving it around quite a bit, so it's going to be okay if there's a little crease in there. But let's just try and get that crease a little bit. What we're also doing is preheating the fabric, so we want to do that. Okay, and I already forgot a super important thing, so let's look at that real quick. So do you see something that we don't want here? We don't want transferred. We do not want this transferred onto our fabric here. So take your normal paper scissors and make sure you trim that off before you get going. So that's important. Unless, for this, it'd actually be kind of cropped out in the hoop. So if you did transfer it with the paper or with that Iron Me text, it's not going to be the end of the world, because you won't see it when you're done. Once it's in the hoop, you won't see it. But if not, cut that off. So all right, we want to preheat the fabric. And you want to be using a dry iron, and that just means it doesn't have steam. You don't want water coming out of this. Oh no, Bonnie! Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, bummer. So, okay. So again, I'm just going to preheat the fabric one more time. And I'm going to place this on kind of in the center. So I want the design in the center. I'm going to just hold it on the edge. I think this design is small enough that I can just hold the iron. So I'm going to put the iron on for about 10 seconds, probably more like 7 seconds, but I'm not going to wiggle it around, because if I wiggle it around, it might shift the paper, which makes your lines a little bit wider. So I'm going to actually start up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now I'm going to do this side down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let's do a little peek. Try not to move it. Oh, we are so transferred. So there we go. Oh, it's a little light over here, but I can still see it just fine. I could have probably held it a hair longer and we would have been good. But there we go. That is our design ready to go. Just gonna press out my little edge. For no reason really, but okay. So that is the iron-on transfer. So you should be able to use this a couple times. If you're not holding it on too long, you might even be able to use it up to 5 times. You should at least be able to use it twice. So once this doesn't work so much anymore, then you always have the trace me pattern, so you can do a tracing method. But I think the iron-on transfer is still the easiest way to transfer a design, because you do this ironing up front and then you're done. There is nothing else to this. We don't have to take anything off. These will be permanent, but our stitches will go over them, so it's not going to be an issue. You won't see it when we're done. So all right, that is that. And again, I want to just two things again. Remember to put your paper down, otherwise it will go right onto your ironing board. And remember, cut off that extra little bit. If you remember anything, remember those two things. All right, guys, let's head back down here. So this is ready to go. Again, I can see everything just well enough, the part that didn't transfer as well. But there we go. So I'm going to set this aside. This is what I'm going to use to stitch later. But I want to show you a few different ways to transfer your design, especially if you have the printable PDF pattern. You're not going to have the iron-on transfer in it, right? So you need to do something else. You can put a piece of aluminum foil. Ooh, let me read that. Patricia, you can put a piece of aluminum foil on the back of the iron and get more prints due to heating the foil on top of the pattern. Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm going to have to try that sometime. Yeah, okay, you can put a piece of aluminum foil. Oh, yeah, that's again. All right, yeah, interesting. I haven't heard that before. I'll have to try that sometime, Patricia. I like testing out new things, new to me things. Okay, needle, I do not want to lose you, so I'm gonna, if I put it somewhere, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna put it with the thread here. So, okay. So if you get the PDF pattern, one of the nice things about the PDF is you can do my second favorite way of transferring a design, which is by using the this is by Sulky. It's Stick and Stitch. This is the same. I know you've heard me talk about it before, the Sticky Fabri-Solvy. This is the same thing. They have updated the branding of it. So if you're finding this somewhere, it is the exact same thing as Sticky Fabri-Solvy. And what this is you can print it right on your printer. It can be a laser printer or what are those called? An inkjet. There we go. And it prints out right onto that. It's kind of got a fabric side, and that's the side that you're printing to. And then it has just like the paper backing. So this pulls off just like a sticker. And I'll show you in a little bit here. We'll stick it on something. But it pulls off like a sticker, and then it washes away in water. It kind of flakes away in water. So you stitch right through it, and when you're done stitching, you will be able to wash it away. Oh, thanks for coming, Debbie. First time here, been watching repeats. Awesome. So, all right, this is great if you have the Sticky Fabri-Solvy. However, you can transfer your design with just a pencil and a window if you want. So I'm going to take the pattern here. We're going to actually trace the whole design tonight because if you got the PDF pattern, I'm guessing that's what most of you will be doing. So if you are in the future right now, if you're overseas, then you probably have a bright sunny window, hopefully. So you can actually tape this to a window and then tape your fabric. I got a little piece of fabric here. You can actually tape your fabric to the window and trace right through it. And you can just trace with just a pencil. And it works just fine. I mean, this I can just trace through without a window or anything. So that's awesome. If you have a light piece of fabric and you can just trace right through, then you're golden. So you can use just a sharp pencil, or you can use a water erasable fabric marking pen. And what I like to do for tracing, since I don't always have a bright shiny window, I have a little light table, and that's what I'm going to show you tonight with it. So I'm going to actually trace this whole thing. You know what? I might come back to it. I'll show you the other ways to transfer first, but then I'm going to come back and I will trace this design tonight, and then we will get stitching. So if you have a light tables are awesome. They're only about $30 these days. Mine's like over a decade old, but it just lights up and then you can trace through everything. So this works excellent if you have a light colored fabric that you can see through, and then you just trace with your pencil or fabric erasable marking pen. I will come back to this because what happens if you have something like this? So this is a little more detailed. It's dark and crazy. You can, there was a question earlier, you can trace directly to the Sticky Fabri-Solvy too. Oh, fun! Renee says that you can use an iPad for tracing, like a table light. You can also put a light underneath like a Pyrex dish, and that should work too. But yeah, like what Susie says, Amazon has light tables under $15. They are so big in crafting now. I think they're just getting bigger and bigger, so they're getting cheaper and cheaper, which is kind of awesome. So if you wanted to stitch on something like this, it becomes a little more difficult to trace, right? Because there's just a lot going on. I can't see through all these dark colors. So that's tough. So in this case, I might choose a different technique. Oh, put a light under your sewing machine extension table. There you go. That's a great idea, Gina. So in a case like this, I might use the Fabri-Solvy, and I'll show you that in a sec. But here is another item you can use, and I've had this pack for like 10 years, so it goes a long way. This is Serral wax-free transfer paper sampler. It has one sheet in all different colors, and it's kind of fabulous. So I'm gonna just take, like it has, you can do, maybe I'll do white. So you can do white for dark color fabrics and black for light colored fabrics. But I drew the bunny on there from our bunny stitch along. I got a few things on here, but you can keep reusing it. So what you can do is place it with the waxy side down and then take your pattern, which evaporated, hold on. We'll use this one, the Trace Me pattern. So I'm gonna just set this right on top. And then you can take like a pencil, like one of these mechanical pencils. If you have a stylus, that works great, but just like a blunt edge. And then you can just trace right over this. And it'll transfer right to it. So this is an alternative to tracing if it's really difficult to see through your fabric. So let's just check that out. I'm gonna hold that there. Oh, that's not, oh, you know what? That's why. Wrong way. Let's do that again. Little X. So you just go through the process of tracing this whole thing, just like how you would trace, but you're putting it, you know, you're get to draw right on top, and there you go. Now it's starting to transfer there. So it's nice. I use the white. If I used maybe the black, it might have shown up a little bit better, but it's still just enough for me to stitch. And when you're done, this will kind of brush away like as you handle it and stuff. So that works great. I clearly have used this option quite a bit. This is kind of my go-to option if I have a difficult fabric. Something like this where I'm not using the Fabri-Solvy, or something where I don't want to get wet, because with the it's called Stick and Stitch now, the Sulky Stick and Stitch. With the Stick and Stitch, you need to get it wet when you're done. So if you have something that you don't want to get wet and it's hard to trace through, and it's like a flat, non-squishy fabric, like this wouldn't work on felt. But something like this, then this Serral transfer paper works super duper well. And that's just from any craft store as well. So that's an option. And then, Oh, the she who must not be named just started talking to me. The Amazon Alexa. Oh wait, I can't say it. The Echo. Every once in a while, she talks to me during these Facebook lives. But all right, back to the Fabri-Solvy. So this works especially great if you have a difficult fabric. So let's say I wanted to stitch on like this jeans. I have just this old jean fabric. And I thought it'd be like where all these kind of knee lines are. I thought that'd be kind of cute. These whiskers would be cute for this. So this is impossible to trace through. It is too thick to trace, and it's just a little too squishy for that transfer, that Serral wax-free transfer paper. It doesn't work that well for that. So that's a perfect time to use your Sticky Fabri-Solvy. So grab your paper scissors, and I'm gonna just cut around the design here. And make sure to save all your paper, because your Fabri-Solvy, or your stick and stitch actually, save your stick and stitch because you can use it again for smaller projects. Like you can trace directly to this. So if you wanted to use it again, you could trace it right to here. Or if you wanted to write someone's name, like if you wanted to write "Craft a Happy Life," you know, Tammy, you can write you could write the name on here first and then place it right where you want it. So there are kind of some fun options for this. So definitely don't throw that away. So all right, we have our design here. So again, it just sticks like a sticker. So throw that paper backer away, and we can stick it on right there. And I'm gonna actually stitch this. I think that's kind of fun. So there, we'd have that, and we would get it in our hoop. I'll just throw it in a hoop just to show you guys. And I'd probably trim some of this jean away, unless it was real jeans. Like you could do this, you could make a patch this way, and it'd be a really fun embroidered patch that you can stitch on some jeans later. But there we go. So we would stitch through both our fabric and the stick and stitch sticker here. And when we're done, we would put this in water and it will all flick away. So I will stitch this up over the next few days here, and then I'll show you when we're done with our other embroidery. I will show you what it's like to take the stick and stitch off. So anyway, those are my favorite ways to transfer a design. We have the stick and stitch, we have the tracing with the water erasable pencil or marking pen, and we have the Serral transfer paper. So for all of you who did get the PDF, I do want to trace the design with you tonight. So here we are. Fabric disappeared. So I'm going to use my light table. We will transfer this design, and then we'll still start stitching tonight. We'll start with the embroidery. But here is the process. Yeah, I love you guys' ideas though. This would work great throwing a light underneath the underneath your extension table. If you have a plastic, or what are those? It's not plastic, an acrylic extension table, that would work great. So one thing you can do, if you have some of this blue painter's tape, you can throw that on your paper and your fabric, and I'm just sticking it right on the top here. And that will help things not move. I could do that on the bottom too, but I think we'll be okay with just the one. But I am gonna just quickly trace this. So what's nice about the water-soluble marking pen is that it washes out in water when you're done. So just a few dabs. You can spritz it with water when you're done, and it will kind of dissolve a little bit. So if you don't want any lines whatsoever, like with the iron-on transfer, you're going to have those permanent lines. If you want to avoid that for some reason, then feel free to trace. However, you have to trace, and that takes time, so it's a balance. You gotta just kind of assess to choose which transfer technique you want to do. You just kind of have to assess your needs. Do you want to get stitching right away, like immediately? Then I would use either an iron-on transfer if you have it, or the Sulky stick and stitch, because you can just print right to it from your printer, and then you're done. You're ready to go. You don't have to trace any lines, and your lines will be, perfect. So those are two ways to get stitching immediately. If you're worried about the fabric you're using, so maybe you want to do that Serral wax-free transfer paper. Maybe you want to do that, or if you for sure don't want any lines around when you're done, you might want to trace with the fabric marking pen like what we are now, the water soluble. There's also air drying marking pens, but I don't like those as much because I feel like if they fade before you're done, then you're kind of screwed, right? I have a link to the tools that I'm using, including this pen. I forget what brand it is, but I do have a link to this specific one in my Facebook post. So if you can see all the writing of my post here in the video, if you scroll to the bottom, I have links to all of these things just to make it easy. But yeah, I use this so much, my water erasable fabric marking pen. I mean, I have it, it's actually in my go-to craft kit, so I always have it. My little bin that I use, my go-to craft kit. Just a sandwich container. So these are the things that my needles and a few other miscellaneous things that whenever I'm traveling in a car, I wouldn't bring this on a plane, but whenever I'm traveling, there's a couple little scissors in there, a ruler, I will just grab that and I know I'll have everything I need. That's where my fabric marking pen lives. I use it a lot. All right, and let's check. That's it, we got everything. So that didn't take long at all. That's what's nice about a little project like this too. Easy peasy, things don't take forever. All right, so I'm gonna just take off, fraying a little bit, but that's okay. Take off the painter's tape, don't need that anymore. Oh yes, so what's really nice now, so my light table's pretty old, but it is nice and thin. However, nowadays they come, so I have to plug mine in. They come now where they're cordless and they're LEDs, and you just have to charge it every once in a while, and they're even thinner. So Patricia, I put a link to, not to this one, I'm not even sure they make these anymore. Like I said, this is well over a decade old. But I put a link to a new one that was kind of cheap on Amazon, but it's thin and it doesn't have to be plugged in. You can carry it around everywhere. It looks kind of amazing. I might actually grab one. I like that I'm not stuck to a cord. All right, I'm gonna scooch this out of the way for now. So yeah, I put a link to one. Yeah, you can just click that to check out a few. Oh, you have a thick and larger one. Yeah, I have an even bigger one. I got like one of those X-ray things. It was like from a surplus store, but it was like those fat ones that, you put X-rays on, or you put like those fun letters on. I think that one broke, but I used that one for a while. All right, let's start stitching. I want to get a little bit on this tonight. We won't go forever because we'll want to stitch the next few nights too. But all right, if you got the kit, it comes with a 4-inch hoop, and that's just big enough to stitch. We may have to move around a little bit, but it's just big enough to stitch this. So loosen the screw closure there. So a hoop has an inner hoop and an outer hoop like this, typically. You're going to put the inner hoop underneath your fabric, and I'm going to just center my design in the fabric. You're centering basically whatever you want to stitch. So if this was a larger design and I was using this size hoop, I would just kind of center the area I want to stitch. But in this case, I'm going to just center the whole thing. There we go. Then I'm going to take the outer hoop. I'm going to just pull it open like this. I'm going to actually make it a bit looser. And you're going to squish it over the top of the inner hoop, just like that, and push it down on a flat surface so that they're even. I'm going to just tighten it enough so it has a little push to it, a little grip to it. And then I'm going to go around. You can kind of see that it got bunched up there, and if I touch it, it's pretty loose. I'm going to just go around the hoop and kind of pull on the fabric just until it's taut. I don't want to stretch the fabric, so I'm not really pulling at it, because when I take the hoop out, I don't want it to like bounce back. I just want it taut enough so it's in the hoop. So I'm putting my finger around like this. You can kind of feel like if there's little waves or stuff, like little loose waves in, and then you just can pull them out a little bit more. It should be like a drum head almost, but you know, again, you don't want to stretch your fabric too much. So when you have it how you like it feels good right now for me, you're just going to tighten the closure the rest of the way. And then we are ready to stitch. So when you're not stitching, like if you're taking a break from, for the evening, make sure to take the piece out of the hoop, because if you leave it in the hoop for a long period of time, it can really kind of crease your fabric, and we kind of want to avoid that. So I always take it out of the hoop when I'm not stitching. So anyway, let's get going. We have our thread here. The thread is wound together on a little loop here. I have my needle and I have my scissors here. So, okay, this is what we're going to look at. So we have some outlines. Here's how you read this. So outlines are, or for backstitch are all the outlines. So the outlines are just the kind of single lines like this. Lazy daisy stitches are the flower petals. So we got some flower petals here and there. And also we got like a single chain stitch there and a little leafy thing there. That will all be like the lazy daisy stitch. And then French knots are the dots and flower centers. So we got a few dots here, and we will add little French knots for the flower centers as well. Ooh, and here's a little bunch of French knots. That'll be kind of fun. So that is the plan. There's instructions here how to do it. Every time, if you're reading some of my instructions, there's like 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3. Every time it's an odd number, you're pulling the needle out in front of the fabric, and every time it's an even number, you're going into the fabric, to the back of the fabric. And that'll make sense as we go along here, and I'll show you how to do each of these. But all right, let's kind of map out how we want to do this. So there's 2 colors, that yellow gold and then that blue. I think I am going to start with the yellow, just because I'd like to get that, it looks like well, actually I'm kind of changing my mind now. I wanted to do that just to make it feel like we have a lot done. But one thing I'm seeing right here is that the yellow for this happy crosses over this blue L, meaning it's kind of on top, right? That's on top of these blue stitches. So in theory, I should do these blue stitches first, because then I can do the this type on top of it later. And that we'll just be jumping around like this too. So I always kind of look at that. What's the lowest thing, and I want to stitch that first versus the top thing. So another example, here we have leaves, and then we have the dot, and we can look at it this way. We have the leaves, and then we have the French knot on top. Well, I'm going to stitch all those leaves, or those petals, first, because it's going to be a bear to do the French knot first and then try and squeak in next to the French knot without the French knot getting in our way to do all those petals. So in this case, we would do the petals first, then that blue little dot. Same thing here, we would do the petals first and then the French knot. So something to look at when you're choosing where to start. And something small like this, it doesn't really matter so much, but you know, since I said so, I'm gonna start with that blue. And just because I think this would be fun to stitch, let's do this life first. So I think we might switch colors as we go too. I think I'm going to do life, and then I will stitch some of the gold, like the craft and the happy. You can do whatever you want. So I'm going to take about 24 inches or so, 2 feet or so of this thread, and I'm going to just cut it away from our big bundle of thread here. So this is 6-strand embroidery floss. When we're stitching, you can stitch with the 6 strands, but it will make a pretty fat line. What I like to do usually is stitch with 3 strands, and that's what we're using on the front here is with 3 strands. So that I'm going to split these into 3. And the easiest way to split thread, they make 6-strand embroidery floss to make it super easy to split into different threads. Some people like using 2 threads, some people like using 4. I personally like using 3. So I'm going to isolate in my finger one little thread. So I got just one there. And keep in mind that this only works if you are doing 1 thread at a time. So don't try and pull 2 threads and think you'll go faster. It'll just tie in a knot. So you want to grab the one isolated bit of thread. I'm pinching the rest of it, and I'm going to just pull that out and let it bunch up behind me. And it looks crazy and like it's going to be a huge knot, but it just releases when you're done. Super easy. So, all right, and here's my thread. I'm going to do that 2 more times. So again, just kind of isolating the one thread. There's 2, and then 1 more. Again, just isolating it. And there we go. And then we have this 3 ready to go over here. I'm going to set that aside so we can use later. And with these 3 that we pulled, just line up the strands, the ends of the strands, and gently just guide all of them together like that. So there we go. We are ready to stitch. Oh, you love that thread trick, Debbie. Yeah, it actually goes so fast. It's so much faster than dividing the 6 strands into 3 by pulling either end. You can just go zoop, zoop, zoop. And you know, I went in a little slow motion a little bit too. You can go faster than I did too. So, all right, I'm going to start right here for this L. Also, the end you cut off is the end you make your knot on. End we cut off. All right, the sound effect, Jean. Yeah, I know, everything needs a sound effect. The end I cut off, which one was that? Was this one? I forget. Anyway, so I'm going to tie a knot at one end, and we are going to start with an away knot. So what you might think is that I'm going to just tie a knot and get started. I'm going to pull it up from the back and get going, but that's not what's going to happen. I want to have a back of my embroidery that doesn't have any knots and that's perfectly clean and lovely, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So to start, when I don't have any stitches on my piece yet, I'm going to use an away knot, and I'll show you what that is. So first I'm going to tie a little knot at the end, and then I'm going to thread my needle. So first off, I'm going to get a nice clean edge to my 3 strands. There we go. And here is how I thread my needle. I do the pinching method. So I bring the thread, you know, I'm not going like this. I'm not licking the ends. I'm not getting it wet or anything. I'm not trying to, you know, trying to thread it like that. I am, oh, where you make your cut on the floss is where you make the knot. Oh, because of the fiber direction. Okay, Patricia, I'm gonna have to do that next time. All right, so I put the thread in the floss so I can pinch it in my fingers here like this. So I'm gonna pinch it so I can't see the thread, and then I'm gonna slowly unpinch it. And the moment I can see the thread, I'm gonna put the eye of my needle over that thread. And I'm gonna keep unpinching. And as I unpinch, it's gonna push the thread through, and I'm gonna push my needle down, and then I can just grab that other side. And we're threaded. Okay, so let's get going. Oh, you do that pinching with yarn. Oh, that's awesome, Debbie. Where you make your cut in the floss. Oh, yeah, I gotta make a note of that, Patricia. Okay, so an away knot. To start out, I'm gonna start right at this line here. So I'm going to do my away knot. I'm gonna start from the front and go to the back. I'm gonna go at least, or I'm gonna try and get like 4 inches away from my starting point. And I know I don't really have all that much, so I'm gonna go right at the top here. And I'm gonna do it where that line from here to there doesn't cross over any of the lines where I'm gonna stitch it. Okay, so right down there. This is gonna seem weird right now, but I will show you the beauty of it in a little bit. But right now we're gonna forget about it. Okay, and we are gonna come up at our starting point there. All right, so keep in mind, there we go, that thread's going from here to here, but we're gonna forget about it right now, and we are gonna stitch this life. So just to double check, the life is an outline. It's just one of these lines. So we're going to use a back stitch. A back stitch, you come out of the fabric, and actually for a back stitch, you come out a stitch away. So let's do that. We'll do this properly. So I'm going to thread my needle again. So for a back stitch, oh, you're practicing your method of threading the needle. I mean, it's awesome. This way, I thread my small little fabric needles this way too, or sewing needles. So I'm coming about a stitch length away from the starting point for a back stitch. So I'm coming out of the fabric. I'm gonna ultimately be going in this direction, right? So I'm gonna go backward from that direction for my first stitch. Hence the back stitch. So I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna go straight down with my needle at that beginning point of that L. And then I'm gonna come up about a stitch length away. And I do about a little more than 1/8 of an inch away, or a stitch length. So less than 1/4 inch, more than 1/8 inch. There we go, and that was our first back stitch. So let me get real close here. So again, for the next stitch, I'm gonna go backwards to where our last stitch was, and I'm gonna go in that exact same hole. See, right there. And there's our second little back stitch. So come up a stitch length away, and you can kind of see I am dragging the needle on the back of my fabric until it's right at that right place on the line. And then I'll poke it up until it's right in the right spot there, see? So again, if you see that point kind of moving on the front of my fabric, and then right there. And then straight down in the last stitch. And that's all there is to the back stitch. So all of this, the life here, is a back stitch except for that little dot on the eye. So let's cruise along this, and I think we might be able to get the life word finished tonight, minus that little French knot. We'll wait till we do all the French knots for that, maybe. Or we'll wait at least till we have, I think that color is, yeah, the life, that dot is gold, that yellow gold, so we'll, can't do that yet until we have the yellow gold on. So this is the stabbing method of stitching. That's where you stab straight down and pull all the way through and then stab up again. The other method is the sewing method, and that's where you go in and then come out in the same motion. I, however, find that it's not really as accurate. So I recommend doing this stabbing method. And we talked about a lot about that. So there are a couple videos that I did a few weeks ago to start off this Craft a Happy Life project with some beginning ideas on how to get the right stitch length and how to get nice, perfect, clean, even stitches. You might want to check out a few of those videos. And you know what? I don't think I put links to that in my post here. I'll put a link to the 3 videos that we did on how much thread to use, how to get the perfect even stitches, and I go over how to do a bunch of the stitches. So I'll put links to all those in here too, so it's easy for you guys to get them. And then it's all on YouTube as well. I always make my stitches a little smaller when I'm going around tiny little areas, like this tight loop here. I think with tight curves like that, you get a little more curvy looking curves versus pointy looking curves. Oh, Carla! Carla says that I love your video on French knots. Now I have perfect French knots each time. That's awesome. That's super great. So yeah, I go over how to do French knots and the 3 things you're probably doing wrong, or you're doing at least one of those things wrong, most likely, if you're having trouble with your French knots. So that's a good video on Penguin and Fish Movies at YouTube. Gretchen, any tricks for what? I think I missed the first part of that. All right, I have one more little stitch here to make. And there we have an L. All right, I'm going to jump right away to this I, and I think I can do that in 2 stitches. Oh, thread twisting. Well, one of the things that helps is doing that pulling method that we did to get our 3 strands. That's actually what I found to be the best way. The other thing that helps me a lot is I always have my left hand, and this is just a good general tip. I always have my left hand in back feeling every stitch. And this, Gretchen, also allows me to go a little bit faster once you get going, is I can feel, like I'm feeling the needle as I pull it through, and I can feel the thread going along my finger. So while I'm watching the front, watching that loop go through, I can feel if anything's twisting, if there's any knots. And then I kind of swipe my thread out of the way of my next stitch. Like my next stitch is going to be over here. I'm swiping the thread away, and I'm going to make my next stitch. I think I'm going to just do one. You know what? I think I'm going to jump down here. We'll do this little F area down here. So again, I'm swiping it away, and then as I'm pulling it through, I am feeling where my thread's going in. I'll be able to tell if there's a knot. I can feel that loop at the end there. I can feel that, and I can feel it go all the way in. So that helps me to not have knots, you know, like crazy knots hop up on the back, is because I'm always feeling it. Like here, I'm feeling the needle come through again, you know, watching from the front. And again, sliding my thread away while I do the next stitch. And then feeling for that loop and feeling to make sure that there's no knots. And that you'll get better at that as you go, but that is one thing that I really think is helpful, having an active backhand, basically. So I guess those are my 2 tips for twisting threads. So you can let the needle dangle a little bit like this if it's getting twisted, and let it untwist. There is some, what is that called? There's a conditioner I think you can put on the thread before you use it that is supposed to help with twisting threads, but I haven't used that before. I don't know, we'll have to snag some sometime. We might run out of thread before I get done with this life. So we will actually, I think I'll probably go until I'm out of thread here. And then I'll show you, if you remember the way not there, I'll show you what to do that. Oh, Jean, okay, Thread Heaven is what it's called. And it's great. Okay, Bonnie likes it, Thread Heaven. Dang, I don't know why that just never makes it to my Amazon list. I'm gonna have to do that. Also, Alyssa, when I do embroidery, I always use, a fusible interface. So that's a good point. You can, so right now it's just fabric back here, which is fine. That's how I do most of my stuff. But if you're worried about seeing big leaps and jumps that you make with your thread, like right now, you might, I mean, I'm gonna remove this, but let's say you had a big jump like that. I don't know if you guys can see, but you can kind of see that blue through my fabric here. If you're using a really light fabric where you're worried about seeing the thread through, you can use an interface. You can actually use just another piece of fabric, will work too, but like a fusible interface. Patricia recommends the fusible interface SF101 by Pellin. But yeah, then you can cross over wherever you want and not see it. I'm not going to actually do any large jumps, I don't think. You know, we might actually do a few little ones here and there. So, I don't know. It's up to you. It doesn't bother me so much, so I'm not going to worry about it all that much. Oh, man, I don't know if I can get the E out of here yet, but we're going to try. That's a good tip, Patricia. All right, let's jump down to here. I'm gonna do that in 2 stitches. Oh, it's gonna be such a bummer if I don't have enough thread. I'll have like 2 stitches left. Oh, maybe I'll have just the right amount. That'd be awesome. Oh, it comes in white and black. That's awesome. So if you have a dark fabric, you can use that. When I stitch, sometimes I stitch with yarn onto fabric if I'm doing like a big embroidery, and it's just kind of fun and neat. But then I'll use even a batting behind my stitches, and that works really well too. It's fun to try different things, but at the most basic level, this works perfectly fine. If you see some of the jumps of the thread and back, that's not the end of the world. All right, we totally made it here. I thought I was gonna run out of thread, but we are just fine. And you know what? I think I'm going to end the thread right there. So when you wanna end your thread, instead of tying it into a knot, so here's our cute little life. Instead of tying it into a knot, what I like doing is weaving it in to the backs of some stitches. So I'm actually going to weave it in right here because it's a nice long area. So what I do is I weave it in 3 times, and my hoop's a little bit in the way, but we can do it still. So that's 1. I'm gonna try and catch as many threads as I can. Here's 2. Oh, thanks, Patricia. And then, oop, I'm gonna lose my floss here. And then 3. And so I do this weaving in the ends instead of tying a knot. I think it leaves a nice flat back, and there's nothing for any of your stitches to catch on. So when I'm done weaving it in, back and forth 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, that kind of locks it in place. If you only do 2, it can still slip if you pull, but with 3, it's not gonna slip. And then I trim it right at the edge of the stitches there. So that is how I finish it without a knot. And now we can address our away knot again. So I don't want to start with a knot either. I want to be able to weave it in at the beginning. So I usually start, when I don't have any other stitches to weave it in on the front of my fabric, I will use an away knot. So now, just pull up on that knot a little and cut it off. There's my knot, don't need that anymore. And now we have a little bit of thread here. So I'm gonna thread that. Again, using that pinch method works awesome. And now I'm gonna weave in that little end. So 1, 2, it's just long enough, I think, for me to weave in 3 times. And 3. There we go. That'll lock that in place. Snip it close to the edge there. And there we go. Now we have a nice smooth back there. There's no knot. If you've embroidered before and you have knots on the back, you might have noticed, like, when you're stitching, your loops will catch on it, and then all of a sudden you've done like 80 stitches, and then you have this giant loop on the back. This will completely prevent that because there's nothing for anything to catch on. It is super nice and flat and nice and pretty. So that's how I do. That's what the away knot's for, to have a no knot start. So there we go, we got the life done. So I think tomorrow I'm gonna start with we'll do the happy. We'll probably do the happy, and then with the P, we might jump down and do that French knot, and then jump back up and do the rest of the word maybe. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. I think we'll get pretty far tomorrow, actually. This really shouldn't take, what I call this, oh yes, away knot, like Debbie, how you have it there, away, A-W-A-Y. Away knot. Yep, correct. Not a space way knot. It's away like goodbye. All right. So all right. Oh, I'm good. I'm glad you guys like that. I love it. And so next time we won't actually have to do that. We can just weave into stitches that we already have. So I'll show you that tomorrow. You only really have to do the away knot the first time, or if you're starting a whole new area that you don't have any stitches nearby. So, okay, we are gonna wrap it up for tonight, but before we go, I gotta take it out of the hoop because, again, I don't want it to crease too badly. And it'll be fine. We're gonna actually finish it in this hoop when we're done, so if it does crease, it's not the end of the world. But there we are. I'm gonna let this sit. It'll relax overnight, and we will pick this back up tomorrow. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna flip you around and we will call it an evening. Hey, guys! Ooh, it got warm here with these lights. I'm sweating. But here we are. Cute little life done. I'm excited. This is totally, I said this earlier, but this is completely a great craft palette cleanser. So we've been working on a lot of big projects here lately. So to do one nice, quick little project, it feels so good to do that. You're never too old to learn the away knot, for sure. So yeah, if you haven't tried that before, give it a go. I totally love it. I absolutely love having a clean back. And you know, it doesn't really matter, you know, philosophy-wise, if you have a clean back or not. For me, it's a technical thing. if we have a pile of knots all over here, it's just more, we're just asking for trouble. We're asking for our thread to catch on it and stuff. So this is just to avoid that. It's a bonus that you end up with a nice clean back. So this is the back right now. It looks the same as the front. What's fun is that the back is in reverse, so you guys can actually read it. Silly. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. We will pick this up tomorrow and get going on it. We'll start that orange color. And I will have the replays of this on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies. If you do a search for that or a search for Craft a Happy Life, you'll probably find it that way. And be sure to also check those other 3 getting going videos that I did earlier in the month to get started with embroidery. But if you don't watch those, you should get the whole process here anyway. So thanks again, guys. I so appreciate you joining me here tonight. You guys are awesome. If you have any questions, keep them coming. And again, I'll be here tomorrow. You can ask them then as well. And I'll be checking my Facebook as well. Oh, and if you are stitching this or working on any other project, I would love if you joined the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. You can share all your photos that you're working on there. I'll share my progress on this tonight over there as well, and I'd love to see how you guys are doing. So awesome! Thanks for joining me. I will catch you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.